magnetic waves. Over 100 years ago, during the first decade of the 20th century, Tesla filed a request to patent a particular aircraft, which he called the world's first flying saucer. The methods used in the design of the flying saucer matched the descriptions of those who claimed to have seen one from the inside, with a discrete capacitor with sufficient size to provide enough thrust to fly, while other small capacitors allowed to control the direction of the flying saucer, to which he added a gyroscopic stabilization system and an electric drive control. Basically, it is an incredibly well-designed aircraft, one that we could actually manage to build today. Or have we already built it? What happened to this invention? Why are we not flying into space with Tesla's incredible invention? While the patent was granted, the craft had a drawback. Since the aircraft did not include an energy source of its own, it needed to be energized by the towers of wireless transmission, Tesla's sources of free energy. The lack of funding led to the abandonment of the development of the towers, so eventually the ship also fell into darkness, and Tesla's saucer was never made. The United States Secret Service seized all patents belonging to Tesla after his death for reasons of national security. Now, if Tesla's ideas were insane, as some had categorized them, why would the United States Secret Service seize the patents for reasons of national security? The ideas of the great Nikola Tesla are incredible, and better yet, way ahead of its time. Many of his inventions aimed at contributing towards world peace through free energy access, but governments and financiers of the time did not follow the progress of Tesla's mind. Though Tesla's papers were sequestered away for national security purposes, he did have a protege that he taught how to build working flying saucers. Otis T. Carr was a protege of the great inventor Nikola Tesla. Carr and his team constructed a number of fully functional flying saucers in the late 1950s. The flying discs worked and were demonstrated. Carr was serious about taking his craft to the moon. However, 2 weeks after a dramatic test flight, their laboratory was forcibly closed. Federal agents confiscated equipment as well as all documentation. Authorities told them Carr's project would destroy the monetary system of the United States. Carr died in 1980, but not before proving Tesla's flying saucer would indeed work. At the time Tesla was teaching the likes of Carr, Arthur Matthews, and Einstein, we should consider what was happening in Nazi Germany. Hitler and his fascist regime of the late 1930s may have also developed the electrified disc known as the saucer. The flying electric motor is a scientific possibility. Why wouldn't German scientists be close to discovering the answer? Perhaps they did. The Third Reich did conduct research into advanced propulsion technology, including rocketry, Victor Scharberger's engine research, flying wingcraft, and the Arthur Sack AS-6 experimental circular winged aircraft. Some UFO sightings during World War II, particularly those known as Foo Fighters, were thought by the Allies to be prototype enemy aircraft designed to harass Allied aircraft through electromagnetic disruption, a technology similar to today's electromagnetic pulse weapons. The Bell UFO was among the first flying objects to be connected with the Nazis. It apparently had occult markings on it, and it was also rumored to have been very similar to a Wehrmacht document about a vertical takeoff aircraft. It is directly related to the supposed crash of a bell-shaped object that occurred in Kecksburg, Pennsylvania, in the USA on December 9th of 1965. That same month, German engineer Rudolf Schreiber gave an interview to a German news magazine in which he claims that he had designed a craft powered by a circular plane of rotating turbine blades 49 feet in diameter. He said that the project had been developed by him and his team at BMW's Prague Works until April of 1945, when he fled Czechoslovakia. His designs for the disc and a model were stolen from his workshop in 1948, and he was convinced that Czech agents had built his craft for a foreign power. Aeronautical engineer Roy Fedden remarked that the only craft that could approach the capabilities attributed to flying saucers were those being designed by the Germans towards the end of the war. Fedden, who was also chief of the technical mission to Germany for the Ministry of Aircraft Production, stated in 1945, "I have seen enough of these designs and production plans to realize that if they, the Germans, had managed to prolong the war some months longer, we would have been confronted with a set of entirely new and deadly developments in air warfare." Operation Paperclip brought many German scientists to America after the war, and many believe construction of flying saucers continued in New Mexico. Is it possible that the UFOs seen today are advanced aircraft built and designed by governments using Tesla's hidden papers? It would be very difficult to argue that Nikola Tesla was not a genius. The famous 20th century Serbian American is known most for his design of the alternating electricity system. But a single feat of engineering would not necessarily be enough to consider this man a genius. Indeed, he could also speak 8 languages and had a completely eidetic memory. Over his life, he held 300 patents, and all of these things combined is probably the reason Elon Musk named his technology company after the great Nikola Tesla. But looking at statements he made in his lifetime, Tesla seemed to also be some kind of prophet. After all, he predicted smartphones in 1926. In an interview with John B. Kennedy, he said, "When wireless is perfectly applied, the whole Earth will be converted into a huge brain, which in fact it is, all things being particles of a real and rhythmic whole. We shall be able to communicate with one another instantly, irrespective of distance. Not only this, but through television and telephone, we shall see and hear one another as perfectly as though we were face to face, despite intervening distances of thousands of miles, and the instruments through which we shall be able to do this will be amazingly simple compared with our present telephone." a man will be able to carry one in his vest pocket. Tesla is describing cellular telephones. Tesla had a very odd childhood, often afflicted by particular blinding flashes of light that appeared before his eyes, accompanied by disturbing visions that caused Tesla great discomfort. And by the time he reached his teens, he had taught himself to repress them from occurring except in certain times of stress. In the early 1930s, the U.S. military and the University of Chicago investigated the possibility of invisibility through the use of electricity and magnetism. In 1936, Tesla was named by Franklin D. Roosevelt director of the project. In the same year, the team of geniuses, including Albert Einstein, was successful making small objects invisible. In 1939, it was moved to Princeton's Institute of Advanced Studies, not far from Philadelphia. In 1940, they decided to carry a full test at the Brooklyn Navy Yard with 2 small ships. Everything worked, and the test was declared a success. An important point here is that there was no one on board the test vehicle. In 1942, Tesla was given a ship and a crew for a full-size test with humans on board. Tesla got a battleship. Tesla warned him about severe problems with personnel if people were on the ship when it became invisible. During the 30s, Tesla was testing a communicator device and supposedly received radio signals from outer space. He strongly believed these signals were sent by alien intelligences. According to Arthur Matthews, an apprentice that worked with him until his death in 1943, claimed to the public in certain occasions that this device, named Teslascope, could receive radio signals from cosmic rays for the purpose of communicating with Mars, and Tesla was hearing alien voices. Preston Nichols, an electric engineer that supposedly worked in the Montauk